of you that left after the last talk, and I have to tell you, security is hard, and it's the last place you get to. So first you see the big money in your eyes, all those startups and millions of dollars in those DeFi. So then you start learning Solidity and JavaScript and React and put your first application together. And hopefully you're successful. And then you wake up one day and all the money is gone. And then you're like, maybe the security topic was actually not that stupid of a panel to go to. So you're the clever guys. So without further ado, I would like to introduce today's speakers. And we have a wonderful, amazing speakers today, panelists today. So going from my left, so your right, we have Justyna Broniszewska, who is engineering lead at Wallfacer, an amazing product that I recommend everybody take a look at. And then we have Damian Rusinek from Composable Security, an auditing company, awesome company I recommend to everyone as well. And finally, we have Piotr Szlachciak. Piotr Szlachciak is CEO at L2Bit, a very important company that assesses security among other properties, but mostly security of different level 2s. And finally, I'm your host for the panel. I'm Marek Kirejczyk, and I'm a CTO at vLayer. So, are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready. Woo. So we're gonna start with very simple questions, and then we're gonna go deeper and deeper into technology and nuance and so on. But let's start with something simple, and I have a bunch of questions, but feel free if someone is like, yeah, this doesn't make sense what someone says, or I really would like to know more about this and that, then feel free to raise your hand, and we're gonna try to answer all the questions because we came here to learn, to understand more, and put a little brick into for the future to be a little bit more secure. All right? Awesome. So, yeah, let's start with a very simple question. Why do people get hacked? And I'm looking at Justyna here, so.
So I would say that, yeah, a lot of people get hacked. And in my opinion, the bigger problem is that people don't understand what they are doing, what they are supposed to do. Let's say, recently we had this hack that, claim here your airdrop of something, some token. And then the person clicks and the transaction in MetaMask appears and it actually sends your token to someone else. So yeah, you just need to know what you're doing. If you click claim airdrop, you shouldn't be sending your tokens to someone else. And that's, so basically understand what you are doing. Also, you can use tools that can help you with that. And let's take as an example MetaMask wallet, which is very basic and you don't have any security features there. But you can use different wallets that are better than MetaMask. And for example, they are better. And they can add you some security level to your wallet. Let's say they can show you, this transaction will send this amount or this will approve some amount of tokens. Maybe you want to rethink sending this transaction.
Right. So how to set up, so I'm new into crypto and I wanna invest significant amount of money. How do I set up my personal things? How do I know which wallet is good and say MetaMask maybe is not so good, but maybe someone else says, what should I install? MetaMask. How do I know where to go?
Yeah, so I'll circle back to what you said, and that there is no the environment is not safe, secure by default, and that's the problem because it's not always the responsibility of users to be safe. If everybody's gonna be a security expert, that's not gonna work. If we expect that every user should know exactly what they do on each step, that's not gonna work. They won't make it. So we have to create those environments that are secure by default. And answering this question, it's hard now because I don't know any solution that is non-custodial and is safe by default. You don't have to do almost anything to be secure. But so it's always unfortunately, at this moment, you still have to understand some of those steps and do them by your own. And depending on the amount that you want to manage, like if we are talking about individuals who are going to manage their assets, if it's a big amount, you could set up, let's say, a safe wallet and keep the most crucial parts in the place, like physically locked somewhere. Like, for example, if you have a safe wallet, you have a few, let's say, you have a, if it's only for you, you have you have two keys that can manage that, one of two. You keep them in different places just for backup, because that's also a threat. You keep them in a physical safe place, and you set up another address that is your on-chain multi-sig or single sig if it's only for you, with some approvals and with some limits to manage the amount. So even if you get hacked, like it works in banking, you have those limits. If somebody steals your card, they can spend, let's say, $1,000 per day. So you can notice that and you can react. Then you take you take your hardware wallet just to block this address and set up another one, right? So it's all about the procedures, and it's actually, unfortunately at this moment it's not that easy.
So Daman already kind of starts pushing us towards multi-sig wallets, hardware stuff, and so on. And I have very interesting questions that I think touch that. And Piotr happens to be the next in the queue. How do you build a secure setup for a company? Imagine you're a startup, you build an MVP, you went to a bunch of VCs, you get $1 million, maybe $2 million. You hire a bunch of guys that are gonna work on your product. You need to pay their salaries, and it's all need to be secure. But in the same time, you need to be able to operate on the money that you get. So, Piotr, can you give us a little bit of insight what's the right way, what's the secure way of building such a setup?
Sure. So two things. Step number one, you can keep the money in a bank, and it will kind of work. Step number two, if you want to keep money in crypto, well, definitely Gnosis Safe is like a must, right? Unless it's not Ethereum, then you, of course, have to find a comparable solution. But from my experience on other chains, it's a bigger pain. But let's say you're using some coins on Ethereum, then Gnosis Safe is a must. But then you can go a step further and think about, okay, let's say you have 3 founders, you create a Gnosis Safe, a 2 of 3, right? So whatever one of you gets mugged, well, they're not gonna steal all the money, great. What happens when 2 of you, die? And well, you might laugh, unlikely scenario, you both go on a plane, you both get in a car, or you, I don't know, both lose your keys. What happens to the safe? Now, all of the money is inaccessible, right? In a bank, maybe you can go like a legal route, I don't know, get some documents, whatever. You cannot do this on the blockchain. So then the next step is, after you have a safe, well, you're like secured against like very small accidents. What about big accidents? You can set up a recovery mechanism. Safe has this nice option where you can set up an address that can basically take over a safe after a certain amount of inactivity. There are a lot more nuances to that, but it's built in. So you can like protect yourself in the long term, that the money is always accessible but not hackable. And this is how I would set it up. And
I would maybe add to that not only multisig is important, but also your EOA is also very important, that it's safe, because we know from the past that people usually keep all the seed phrases on their computer. So it's not safe if your seed phrase is on your computer.
All right, that's a very good point.
So there's something weird that happened here. Like, everybody's talking about different ways, and we keep talking about multisig. Where are the hardware wallets? Is it a no-no
EOA of multisig.
Okay. So it's okay.
That's what I also
hardware.
mentioned. Like, if you're setting up this safe wallet, and the most crucial part, which can execute any transaction, those should be those hardware wallets which you keep safe physically.
Yeah, I
Do
think
any of you guys use safe with hardware wallets?
like only.
Yes, only.
On scale from 0 to 10, when 10 is completely usable and 0 is a nightmare and you don't want to do it.
You're doing it
where
wrong.
would
You're
you-
using MetaMask. This is why it's hard.
Okay.
Right? With Rabi, hardware wallets work.
All right.
And also it depends on the amounts that you manage,
I'm
right?
just looking at the room if there is anyone from MetaMask here. So
Hope not.
they don't get offended. All right, guys. So here is the next question. 3 tips to avoid getting hacked as a company. 1 tip each, no repeating.
Using hardware wallet as your signer to multisig.
It's cheating.
Okay, I thought you were asking about 3 tips by each, but if I had to find one,
Just one.
I won't answer this question, but it's very important as well. Prepare to be hacked, like, because it's not about how to not get hacked, because it's always a case. Like, you can always be hacked, and one important thing that we usually don't answer is what happens then, right? And you should be prepared for that before you get hacked, because after that it's too late and you don't have enough time. And so build the procedures, how you start this war room, who's gonna be at the war room, what are the responsibilities, so what are the steps after being hacked. Make those connections with people that can help you, because of course you don't have your in-house skills for managing the hack.
Okay, so tip number 3 is gonna like expand, which is security checkups. Once, like every month is a good time because you have to pay your taxes, you have to do other stuff. Like, it's good to have like a, for example, spreadsheet with all the addresses that you manage. And like at L2Beat, we have this spread.
And private keys as well, right? In this
Of course. Especially in Google Sheets, like this is the best place to store your private.
No private keys, just seed phrases.
No, in all honesty,
So,
if
just for clarity, that was a joke.
yes,
Good.
100%
Please
joke.
don't put your private keys and seed phrases in Google spreadsheets. Thank you.
But what I wanted to say is, it's really easy once you start doing a lot of crypto operations to like have, especially if your company is more than one person, to have like a lot of different addresses. So it's good to know like what this address is, who can actually access it. Is it an EOA? Is it a multisig? Who has the keys? And if this address gets used somewhere, where is it used? And then maybe, right, consolidate funds into like long, safe storage that you never touch. Stuff like this, so that the attack surface is minimized.
I would maybe add that to hardware wallets that, guys, you should know where your seed phrase is, and also try to go through like backup, recovery backup process at least once, because if you haven't done that, it means that you don't know if it works.
Yeah, but we were talking about on-chain stuff, private keys. But what's also very important if you have a project are those components which are outside that. And I mean, you should identify all the applications that you use as a project, as a team. Like, for example, social media, like payment system, whatever, and make it secure. So there are checklists for sure for all of them, and simply go through the checklist and set up all the stuff, like starting from two-factor authentication or authorization, or both, and so that you know what you manage, like you mentioned, the addresses, and also you have the list of all the applications that you use. You have them secured. And also I would say another thing is the access control matrix with all the people in your team, because you're gonna get new people on your board. Some people are gonna leave. So this is the place where you see very easily what accesses you should revoke for the person who leaves your company, right?
I would add maybe one tip that is not that commonly talked about. Buy a physical safe or vault and use it, like, or your hardware wallet, seed phrases. And that is so true for crypto as for other things.
And a gun.
Yeah, that is unrelated, but
Another
also
layer of
good
security.
advice. Yeah. All right, guys. So, the gun. Yeah, no, we're not starting on the guns though. So guys, we're moving away a little bit from personal company security and towards protocols. The protocols we would like to use, the protocols we would like to build. And again, we're gonna start with a very simple question, which is, how does one know if the app or a protocol can be trusted? Justyna, would you like to start on this one?
It's hard to say. You need to definitely see the reputation of the page. Is it actually being used by many people? Is it actually not fake app? And also, for example, Rabbi has this feature that, sorry guys, I will refer to Rabbi a lot because it's like a really nice wallet that is very secure.
Do they have like ambassador program?
I should have, seriously.
Something I could join together with you and...
I should have.
Product placement.
I recommended Rabbi to so many people. Everyone was happy about it. So they should pay me for that.
I think the funny story is, I think Justyna wanted to build some features for Rabbi, and then she discovered that they already exist. Or what was your story?
I wanted to build like a wallet that is better than MetaMask, and then discovered Rabbi that it actually does everything that wallet supposed to do. So so in Rabbi there is this feature that they say, hey, this site you are trying to interact with wasn't used by anyone or is used not frequently, so maybe you should verify. So this is for sure important. But also, I know that you probably want to go into the direction of auditors. And the site or protocol should be audited by
Damian.
Yeah, like a nice auditor tag. They should have nice audits that are maybe, I don't know, auditors with a great reputation and that we know that they deliver quality audits. But that's not the most important thing, because even if someone has been audited by an auditor that is that is very nice and everyone knows that they are quality auditors, maybe there is something in the audit that suggests that the protocol is not that secure and it cannot be trusted. But you would need to read that. So you just need to be very careful with that.
By the way, how many builders do we have in the room? People who actually built out? Okay, so that's, for the reference of the camera, roughly a little bit under a half of the room.
Can I have one question to the audience?
Sure.
Who is not in security and have read at least one audit report? Okay.
Whoa! For the reference
many more
of the
than
camera,
I expected, actually.
This is unexpected. Cool. I just want to say it aloud again for the people watching us on YouTube later, or the streaming, that almost the same amount of people who are building are actually reading audits for other protocols. So
wouldn't you guys say this is actually it's a good thing in terms of wow, we're building awareness, but you can interpret it in a way that this space is so insecure that people who are not in security have to read audits so that they are safe, right?
Yeah, but that's the problem of the security space in Web3. Because coming back to the question, how do you know if the project is trustworthy? We've created a kind of methodology for our client to rate the projects that they may invest in. And we have divided that into a couple of categories. The first one was verifiability, so that you check who's behind the project. And I know that some projects are fully anonymous and they are fine, but they have to prove that they are fine. They have to operate for, let's say, years, and you can see that there were no issues. So that makes them okay. But if the project is quite new, you would like to know who's behind the project. If it's not someone who just scammed people in their previous project, right? Another thing is this security in general, those audits, but not in terms of whether a reputable company has audited, but also in terms of the scope, because sometimes the projects have audit by, let's say, a reputable company, and they change the code, or the scope didn't include some parts, or included only small part. Let's say the audit was only for token, but they have the whole, like a lot of different components in the project that are built on top of the token. So that was the case, to check the scope, check the date, because the projects, if you are not developing constantly your product, you're behind, right? So you have to constantly improve your product. So if the audit is from last year or 2 years ago, it means that it's not probably
a recent one.
Yeah, the project has something that was not audited.
So Damian, I have a question for you.
Yeah, I imagine.
Should auditors be revealing all the audits they've done and include information how many of those protocols they were auditing got hacked?
Should auditors do it by themselves? Because we have,
or like in general, have a some kind of.
We have wrecked leaderboard where you can see like what were the biggest the biggest hacks and who's been auditing those projects. But there is a interesting case here as well, because at the beginning when by the way, who knows wrecked?
Rec.news, yes. And I think there is actually, that one is not that up to date anymore. There is, I think maybe DeFi Llama or someone else. There is a new ranking.
Maybe DeFi Safety, I can't remember.
I think there are others that are maybe more up to date. I don't want to
but even
get
with
everyone
Rect,
confused, but just...
Even with Rect was that case when they initially just put the names of all the auditors that were behind this project. And then the companies and then the auditors said, come on, this was not in the scope. This was for the previous version of this project. So Rect changed the methodology, how they know if the project was audited by this particular company. And now, like, most of them are simply unaudited. And this shows the scale, because unaudited doesn't necessarily mean that it was not audited at all, but it can mean that the version that was hacked was not audited, because it's not a one-time moment where you are safe, where you are secure. It's a
checking
process.
that out right now. Yeah.
No, but
do you want to add something?
It makes sense. I think it was the Nomad Bridge hack. It was a big hack, but the way the hack worked was that they didn't audit. Like everything was like tip top, right? They did the deployment, and they pushed a new version where they just changed one parameter or something. And this part wasn't audited, and they made an error in the parameter, which meant that the entire thing was insecure.
Yeah. Or for example, the proxy was not initialized and the state was...
So it was not the code by the setup.
But this also shows a big problem with audits, meaning that audits happen, let's say, at the GitHub level, right? And they should happen at the mainnet level, because what you really want to audit is the deployment, because the deployment has the parameters set up, the deployment has the ownership set up, and the code on GitHub has none of that.
And not only deployment, but also upgrades, because Nomad was a case when there was an upgrade. The code was perfectly safe, but one value was wrong.
There is just so much questions I want to ask right now. So, like, you touched so many different interesting topics. I'm going to start with the most direct question: how to figure out if... So I wanted to ask the question, how to figure out if the auditor is a good auditor. But how about we flip it and say, how do we know the auditor is a bad auditor? Because maybe it's a simpler question if you have a bunch of auditors to rule out those that are obviously not that good, rather than keep looking for a perfect one.
Okay, hot take. From the perspective of the end user, every auditor is bad because they never work for you. They work for the app. And so the app pays the auditor so that the auditor finds vulnerabilities in the code given some assumptions, right? For example, the app says, hey, there is this... Sorry.
Yes. Finally, a conflict on my panel.
Let's go. I don't want to say auditors are bad. I just want to say their incentives is to find vulnerabilities given some constraints. So let's say I build this app. I say I want to have complete control over this app, but no one else can steal money, right? And so the auditor says, okay, like I've checked the code, no one else can steal money, right? But then what happens? I lose the keys, and all the money is gone, right? So from the perspective of the user, a successful audit that says like no one else can steal the money doesn't still translate easily to the actual risk that the user is taking.
So I would say that's more contest case where you have the rules, like any governance address is out of scope. Don't report any findings for the governance address. But in case of audits by companies, like from our experience, it's what you mentioned is actually more like security consultation. When the client asks specific questions, like, can we be hacked in this functionality, or what are the best practices to make it more secure? But if they are asking for audit, we always report all the findings. And one of them is centralized ownership, let's say, because this is like the most general name for this case, where the governance, or mainly usually at the beginning is the team or the founder, like even one person, one EOA, and there is no multisig behind this governance or owner address. There is like simply EOA, so let's say one person. So we report that, and in the end, it's of course the decision of the client of the project how they're gonna either fix that or accept this risk or acknowledge this finding. So that's actually comes back to what you mentioned, that even in the report there can be findings which were not addressed by the project in the end. And the client usually pays for the audit, but the client also agrees when they want to have an audit that we're gonna report all those findings, and we're gonna take, let's say, like straightforward, we're gonna take the team as one of the potential threat actors. But on the other hand, like there can be a scenario when their key is lost, because when we do smart contract audit, we don't audit their key storage, how they store the key, if it's secure. So they can lose the key. And if it's one EOA, so one private key, and they keep it unsecure, they don't have to be malicious. They can be simply, like their key can be simply stolen, and somebody takes over the whole project, right?
Can I have a question?
There is a question from the audience.
The question is, what happens when the company that is being audited refuses to publish the audit?
Well, in our case, in our default agreement, we have this point that we can publish the reports, but sometimes clients, they don't want to do that, and they say, we cannot agree on that. And usually, we agree on that, because we usually work with devs. So our report is something that we are happy if it's published, so that people can read it. But if the client wants to accept some risk, they don't want to publish that, we have to agree on that, because in the end, it's their decision.
So this is the point to what Piotr was saying. Like the incentive is there, like the company is working for the software company, the auditing company is working for the software company, and ultimately that's the information for the end consumer that there might be a bug or some big issue that the auditing company found. The smart contract author, the company that created the code, just decided not to publish the code, maybe went for the other auditor who didn't find the problem or issue and published that one.
I think this part is actually over-exaggerated, because and half of the room here said they're reading audits, so I wonder if they're going to agree with me. But when you read those audits, there often there's 1, 2, 3, 4 criticals that just get fixed, and the audit get published only after that get fixed and get a status fix. So I never seen it. Like, it had to be really terrible code base with 10 criticals or something. But none of the auditors would find 10 criticals, because they're gonna be so tired after finding 3 or 5 and happy with the work.
I just wanted to answer what you mentioned, that usually the projects want to have the audit report to be published, because that shows that they take security seriously. And also, when we start cooperating with somebody, so we are doing audit for somebody, we tweet that. So if the client doesn't publish that, they take this risk that you mentioned, that they have the audit done and they are not publishing that. So people will start asking questions, why, right? So it's not that they can really hide it.
But okay, nobody answered my original question. We get into very interesting discussion how to figure out, is an auditing company a bad company? So I make it even more direct question to you, Justyna, and tell me, if some company is on the reg.news, mentioned a few times. I, by the way, checked the reg.news in the meantime. There's over 200 hacks. I think roughly half of them is unaudited, but some companies are still mentioned several times. If such a company is mentioned there several times, is that a clear signal we should not use that company, yes or no? Or
that's
maybe
a risk to go for a company that was hacked already and many times, for example. So that's a risk you need to take if you decide to get an audit from that kind of company. So I wouldn't probably recommend it, but that's what Damian said, right? That sometimes, even though in rect news it says that this company was hacked by and audited by this auditor, it doesn't necessarily mean that they followed the findings that the auditor found. So it's not that clear, and it's not like black and white.
I still heard an argument that there are big companies like hiring 100 or 200 people, and there are small companies hiring like 5 people. So if you're a big company, you're gonna get hacked more often.
You mean the security companies or the projects?
Auditing companies, yeah. So like,
Yeah,
if
like
you have those big companies with 100 people doing, whatever, dozens of audits every month versus a small company that does maybe 2-3 a month.
Yeah, like security is for sure very hard to scale. But coming back to the question.
So does that mean the bigger company, the bigger risk, it's not very good company? Is that
I'm
sure
there are big companies that know how to that have the methodology of scaling, like of introducing new people, working together with, let's call them seniors, and like transfer the knowledge. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's hard. If you're accepting any client and you have like huge line of clients and you simply have to take care of them very, very fast, that's probably a problem, and you're not gonna make it. But if you're doing it, I don't want to say slowly, but in the time that you actually can manage keeping the good quality, I think it's doable. But coming back to the question, because we were talking about the rect news leaderboard, and there are some companies there. It doesn't actually mean that those companies are the companies that missed some critical bugs. Because if we looked at the bug bounty platforms and got all the highs or criticals there, and then do the same list of companies that audited those projects, and you would probably now have another option than hiring a company that has at least one high or critical missed, right? Because it's even for Unispap before, which was audited by very many big companies, smaller companies, and I saw, like, they haven't published the audits yet, but I saw on their GitHub there was some commit called like C1, which means from audits, which means probably a critical one. And I checked in the code, and it seemed like an interesting case. So I didn't get what was the exact root cause there, but I'm looking forward for the report for them. And it shows you, sorry. Okay. So it shows you that even huge companies that have great developers, a lot of completely different auditing companies behind them, they still can have a critical bug. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be some, maybe not criticals, but some, let's say, mediums submitted on bug bounty platforms after they deploy. But usually those, maybe not usually, but some of those submissions are what Piotrek mentioned, the bugs not coming from the source code, but coming from the configuration.
Also, like, I was thinking a lot about the question, like finding bad auditors. and I'm gonna attack the premise of the question. Like, why do you care if an auditor is good or bad? You only care about it because you're gonna have to pay for the auditor. But if the end goal is to have your product secured, right? What you want to do is not find the best auditor, but hire multiple auditors and have a bug bounty program and have it continue after you launched. So it really doesn't matter that you like know a good auditor from a bad auditor. Like, pick a few reputable ones, right? Do a bug bounty program. I don't exactly see how that's a wrong approach.
Well, some people would say if you put your code on Code Arena or some other bug bounties, for those of you who don't know, there are like two types of bug bounties. There are those you do before you deploy to the production, and there is platforms like Code Arena, and there's Immunify, I think it's the name, and it's live bug bounties once you're on the production, right? So we're talking about Code Arena likes. So isn't that already like putting your code to multiple auditors?
Well, exactly. But then attacking the premise of the question, you don't even need to find the bad and good auditors, right? You don't need to have a predefined metric.
I wouldn't say that, because you want to find the auditor that will understand your code and not going through checklists, seeing that you have non-reentrancy issues or something like that. You want to find someone that will understand the code, will understand the vulnerabilities, and will help you make it secure. So you kind of want to know which one are the best.
I would say you're not looking for good or bad auditor. You're looking for auditor that you're comfortable with. So some people that you feel the chemistry when you were working together. Because, for example, those contests, so this pre-deployment bug bounty, there are some documentation. There's some documentation. Sometimes they record walkthrough, and a lot of people are starting the audit. And a lot of questions arise on these Discords and other channels, other platforms, and they simply cannot answer all those questions. So they are giving general answers. So in this case, you cannot work in close cooperation with the team. And I think this is crucial, because without that, you don't know the assumptions. Those assumptions that you mentioned, they are not very good, because the project can have some assumptions that you should disagree with. But in the end, you have to understand those assumptions, because some bugs that are very hard to find are those business logic bugs. And you have to understand deeply how the project works. And now when the projects are getting bigger and bigger, this is even more crucial, because you really have to have a source of information, instant information that can answer all your questions. So we love to cooperate with clients when they, let's say, reserve a few developers for us. Of course, they do their daily work, but whenever we have a question, we get answered in like half an hour, depending on the time zone, of course.
Can I actually ask a question instead of you? Because
yes,
sorry.
To hear your question.
Back when I was still programming smart contracts, I was like constantly frustrated with Solidity as a language. Like, it has so many pitfalls, so many problems, and I was dreaming of a better language. And even still today, I'm no longer programming. I'm looking into smart contracts, reviewing them for L2s, and I'm still thinking, like, how many of those problems could just be solved if we just had a better language? And so, not JavaScript, no. But I wonder, like, why don't projects that have millions of dollars of funding, right, invest into like better features in Solidity, like built-in reentrancy protection, right? Better standard library. Like, if you've read smart contract source code, you know that to interact with ERC20 tokens, you have to do some weird stuff. You cannot just call transfer, because some ERC20 tokens do some weird stuff there. And like,
but the fun fact is they tried to fix it like 3 or 4 times, and every time someone got hacked.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, like, why not? And this goes back to what we talked at the very, very beginning, which is the environment that we're working in is like insecure by default. And why don't we as an industry invest into like making it more secure by default. Like we're doing this all the stuff on the edges, like bounties and whatever. But as you said, the projects grow, right? The complexity grows, and it's all built on this shaky foundation. Like I would like to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
So you've got the legacy, right? So it's hard. We would have to like reset and say that now we know how to do it properly, so let's start again.
Let's all move to Solana.
I didn't say that, but okay.
You're moving to Solana?
So it's I think it's impossible to do it like easily, like with a switch.
I have a fun story about that. So there's this guy in our company, and he's a big fan of what's the other blockchain? Cardano.
Your mic isn't working.
Yeah, sorry, one more time. So we have a guy in the company, and he's a big fan of Cardano, and he always talks how Haskell is a better language, and why don't we use Haskell, Cardano, and all that stuff, right? It's I think it's a very valid question, like. But I think, and this has happened over and over and over, that there is this thing called network effect. And this network effect, I think people usually associate network effect with, say, social media, right? I have all the friends on my social media. But then there is network effect on blockchains. It's usually in form of liquidity. Like all the liquidity seems to be on EVMs, on the Ethereum ecosystem. Like vast majority of things that people do on the blockchain, they do on it in big Ethereum ecosystem considered as L2s and alternative EVMs and so on, right? But the same happens for languages, right? Like JavaScript owns browser. Mm-hmm. So there was multiple attempts by the big tech companies like Google and Facebook to build better JavaScript. And every single attempt failed. Eventually Microsoft came with TypeScript, and it's all becoming even more messy. And today, to set up a project in JavaScript is a nightmare. It's never done. It's an act of, I don't do it anymore, right? And with Webpacks and new tools, and this tool doesn't work with that tool. And it's exactly, Solidity is on this crossroad of those two powerful network effects. On one hand, we have all the liquidity on the EVM. It's super powerful network liquidity related. And the other is developer community, which is Solidity developer community. And it just seems, and so many companies, Solana tried to break it, Cardano tried to break it, many other before and later tried to break it, and everybody failed.
Yeah, you even have different languages for EVM, like Viper, for example, which is in Python and has some built-in security features. But yeah, that's I guess because first of all, Solidity was first, right? So there is plenty of resources how to learn Solidity, and not so many how to learn Viper. For example.
Yeah, I would maybe defend a little bit Solidity because it evolves, it changes. So they are adding constantly some improvements to this language. And as Damian said, it's difficult because we need to support the previous versions. You have the reset. And also safe math is now built in, and everyone is secure.
Finally,
right?
Maybe re-entrancy in Solidity 9.
Yeah, maybe in the future.
But I don't like when somebody says that re-entrancy is vulnerability. It's a feature.
No,
it's a feature.
Sure, it's a feature.
So there are projects
it's a feature that allows
it.
to extract millions of dollars from smart contracts by hackers every year.
Like you have those callbacks, and with re-entrancy, it would be impossible, right?
Oh. Guys, I want to interrupt. We have just a few more minutes, and I have two, I think, very important questions I want to ask. I just want to summarize and everybody to hear that JavaScript and Solidity are here to stay. Sorry. Good. The one thing, when we were talking earlier, and I was trying to be, facilitating a little bit of conflict, but something started occurring to me when we were talking is like, those companies are doing those audits, and then maybe developers gonna apply or the recommendation or not, and even more importantly, they can apply, the code might be fine, but the setup might be wrong, right, the deployment. Should we as a community, broader developer community in blockchain space, develop some kind of standard, like every every project should have a website when it says, those are the contracts involved, those are the audits, those are the links to the audit of that version, specifically that deployed, or that version has been modified, and this is the multi-sig that can do this and that and so on, right? Is that something like we should be building?
Well, that's something that we already tried to do in Composable. So we created the standard that goes through the whole process, starting from the building the architecture, like not even implementing your code, and then going through the implementation, like all the SDLC, right? And then we also created the security guide, which is like free to download from our website, where you have all those security services at your disposal on all different stages, like starting from the idea in your head. You can start with threat modeling, because like one thing I really hate about security in Web3 is that audits. Like the only thing that we talk about, audits, because everybody does that, like all the security companies do that. We also do that, because audits, so why wouldn't we? But it's so hard to introduce other services. And of course, there are some other services like formal verification, which are hard or quite expensive, or fuzzing, which is maybe not expensive, but also quite hard. There are not so many people that do that. But we don't talk about the previous stages. Like, for example, building your in-house security. It's not easy, it's not hard, it's not expensive. You can simply start doing that and it will pay off in a year. You find somebody in your team, a developer, that is interested in security. You reserve some budget for them, some time for them, and give them some tasks, security tasks. Like, hey, we've heard about threat modeling. Can you research that and can you do it for us? Like your in-house security. Threat modeling itself, like knowing if you make all your team members come together and talk about your project, trying to build a high-level view of your project, and changing the mindset of how can we break that, you will hear so many different answers from so many different angles. And this is very cool because you're doing it in-house. You don't need anybody. If you don't know how to do it, you can ask somebody. But another thing is also having a security partner. So a security company that doesn't do only audits, but also do some consultation, can answer your questions if you have them. And you don't have to reserve them. You have to just have a communication channel with them so that it can be a Telegram group, Signal group, whatever, or Slack, whatever you like, and just somebody to ask questions. And that's not expensive.
I think we have only 3 minutes left. I have one more question, so I propose I'm going to form it in a following way. So 3 top tips, 1 person each. How to best prepare protocol or the app for an audit. And Justina, would you like to start?
I can take the basic one, like having a good quality code covered with tests and a reasonable process of code review and just continuous integration. And I would say these are, maybe I told you 3 already, but...
I would say documentation, and I mean describing your main business flows, the roles in your project, and the assumptions, what the roles can do, and the high-level view diagram that you have created in-house, and the threats that you have identified by yourself. So what are you afraid of?
Okay, and my tip would be apply the most important principle in software development that I know of, which is the code should be written so that it can be read by anyone, and then it can also be read by auditors, right? Can I say one thing, because we talked about the audits and security, and I just want to leave this because maybe someone hasn't heard about this tool, and I think it's the best tool for security in blockchain, revoke.cash. You click revoke on everything. So if you haven't heard this, do it today. Thank you.
So
Right,
if we can make last takes, like if you're a builder having a project, check out what is SEAL 911. I'm not gonna tell you what it is because I want you to be curious about it and Google that. SEAL 911.
Okay, so I will add also one more thing. If you are building a protocol and you are asking a user to approve, just ask for approval of the exact amount you want to use, not make unlimited approvals, because then revoke cache doesn't make any sense if you have limited approvals.
You heard them. Justyna, the tech lead at Wolfracer, Damian Rusinek, founder at Composable Security, and Piotr Szlachciak, CEO at L2Bit. Thank you very much for listening. Stay safe and give a nice round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.